Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J. How you doing?
I'm good. Welcome back to the States, man.
Oh, it's good to be back, but my God, am I jet lagged into next Tuesday.
Well, that's what's going to happen. When you go to Prague, what's that like? +7 or something? And then...
No, more than that. It's even more than that. From Denver? Like, Denver to Prague is like... God, I don't even know.
I was thinking
more than that.
+7 from where I am, and then Denver's -2, right?
Oh yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
I do usually keep track of my time based on what time it is where you're at.
Same. That's how I do it.
Yes, but no, Prague was actually even that I've had a little time to adjust to, because after a few days in Prague was actually in Dublin for the Pro Tour itself, and it was a good time, man. I wish it would have been nice to spend a little bit more time in Dublin, but just too busy at the moment. However, Pro Tour, lots of new stuff to look at, but man, God, I'm just glad that we have. I just want to take a moment to pull back, and man, it's kind of nice having an opportunity to just chit chat on the Magic cards every week, man. It's nice kicking it with you.
Thanks. I feel the same way about you, man.
Yeah, and it's also nice kicking it with all you guys at home. This is, man, we've been doing this for, what is it, 2 years now?
2 years, yeah.
God, it's a good time.
It's awesomer than the day we started.
So thank you, everybody, for kicking it with us and following us on all the usual spots, social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that, and
Facebook,
of course,
Patreon, yeah.
And shout out this week to, and I apologize on the name. You know me, I try to mispronounce a different name wrong every week, usually Magic Cards names or basic words of the English language. But this week, is it Håkan Gulbrandsen? Totally badass name, but I not 100% sure. So please forgive, but my God, are we glad to kick it with such badass named patrons?
Thank you so much. So to Håkan and everybody who's backing us up on Patreon, and everyone who's listening, tuning in every week,
and putting up with mispronunciations left and right, some of which become canon in the case of Kalidas, I guess.
Oh, that is true. I like to pronounce words in variable ways myself. You know how it is.
Yeah, alternative pronunciations. Absolutely.
As long as the Magic strategy stays straight, I think people will keep tuning in.
So where do you want to begin, man?
I think we would be remiss to start somewhere other than Mardu vehicles. I would, under usual circumstances, never be negative about stuff on this podcast, but we said that one of those two decks was going to be the most played at the Pro Tour, being Black-Green Constrictor and some sort of Saheeli combo. And Mardu vehicles, my understanding, was the tippy tops in terms of not only popularity, but my goodness, that top 8.
Well, so it's actually a little funny whether you would consider Mardu vehicles to be the most popular. I don't. I think that it's some funny accounting to consider Mardu vehicles to be the most popular deck. It was at the top of their list, given that they made the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth place decks the same two decks. So, but Mardu vehicles was definitely top 3. But it was the most successful at the top. But there's also this weird selection effect because of the big teams having like some of the best teams all came to the same conclusion on Mardu. Largely, I think, because it was right. But I don't think that it's necessarily so busted of a strategy that it's going to it's kind of just locked in like this. I mean, it's the paper rock scissors for this format has unfortunately proven to be fairly straightforward and easy so far. Mardu Vehicles was the most obvious deck to build, and then green black had an advantage against it and did the best in week 1, and Copycat was the best against the baseline green black decks, so it did the best in week 2. And now we are back to Mardu, which has an advantage against Just Guy, and it did the best in week 3. Additionally, though, there's been some important developments in all the different decks sideboarding that has led to kind of a shifting and rebalancing of power. But let's start by taking a look at the actual winner, the winning Mardu deck from Lucas.
Lucas Esper.
Yeah, I was going to say, what kind of a fake out? What kind of a fake out?
Yeah.
Where your name is literally Esper.
When I saw folks tweeting about that, I thought like Esper was his nickname, and I was like, oh man, he's probably got like some sort of badass Sorin Ceremonious Rejection deck. And I looked, and no, not at all. He was playing Mardu Vehicles on the way to.
Well, no. I mean, he is playing Esper. He's just splashing a lot of red.
It's a lot. Fair enough. So, all right. So Lucas's version of Mardu Vehicles. You know what jumps out to me?
What's
One
that?
thing jumps out at me. He's got 3 copies. Count them. 1, 2, 3 copies of Gideon Ally of Zendikar main deck. How do you feel about that? That's a statement in and of itself to me.
What's
One in the sideboard.
Yeah, what's the statement?
I think as a player who is terrified of Gideon, the 4 Gideons is the bee's knees. Like Paulo, Vitor, Damo, Rosa, for example. I know we'll talk about that maybe at a different juncture in this podcast. I played 4. I'm asking what you think about 3 versus 4. Do you think it doesn't matter? Do you think it's a big deal? I think especially since so many of these decks are. Look at any of them. Lucas's is a good example. He's got 4 copies of Heart of Kiran. I think you kind of want to have a lot of Planeswalkers, right?
I mean, well, Heart of Kiran looks like it's supposed to be crewed by Gideon, but it's really supposed to be crewed by Scrapheap Scrounger and Veteran Motorist. But, I mean, I don't know. I think that 3 Gideons is like industry standard. I mean, like, for instance, Marcio played 3, Lucas played 3, which as we just mentioned. Lou played, is it Yuchin?
I think Yuchin Lu.
Yuchin Lu played 3. Eduardo played 3. Donald Smith played 2. So, I mean, obviously, like, a number of people have the 4th one in the sideboard, and in Donald Smith's case, he had number 3 and number 4 in the sideboard. But no, I don't think that it's weird to play 3 Gideons at all. You can only have 2 in play at the same time. It makes you more vulnerable to Copycat. It dies when you're on the defensive. like they correctly anticipated that everybody and their mother is going to play Heart of Kiran. And when everybody and their mother plays Heart of Kiran, I mean, Heart of Kiran just like rips Gideon apart.
I mean, it really does, right? This is even worse than Smuggler's Copter, right? Gideon
so
has base 4 loyalty. The mode thing you do the first turn it's in play is to not increase its loyalty, and then I guess if there's a Heart of Kiran, you'll increase its loyalty.
But I don't know. But what are you even accomplishing by playing the Gideon then? You're not exactly.
Look. Sometimes,
right, and then they drop the Motorist and hit Gideon for 5, and you look like a silly goose.
I think that we can. Agree that Heart of Kiran is good against Gideon.
Speaking of Heart of Kiran, though, I think Heart of Kiran is the real crazy one here. I think that, like, it's weird. Like, you read the card, and it's like ostensibly all for Planeswalkers. But I guess it was from the sound of it, it was a late development change that it ended up with a crew 3 instead of a crew 4, or whatever. I think they also were just balancing around the world where they were just like, okay, well, maybe Smuggler's Copter is just like the right stats for vehicles. Because I think that they had, I think that there were very mixed perspectives on how strong vehicles were. And I don't think they fully took into consideration the haste and, haste indestructible during your opponent's turn aspect. And so, like, Hearted Kieran has got a little bit of Putrid Leech going on, where on turn 1 you play your Toolcraft Exemplar, and then on turn 2 you play Heart of Kieran and attack for 3. And then on the following turn you can drop, whether it's a Scrapheap Scrounger or Thalia or Veteran Motorist or Pied Noir or whatever you want, and then you can just attack for 7. And already you've attacked for 7, they're at 10, and you have 10 showing. So, like, your normal draw kills on turn 4 when you draw a Heart of Kieran and Toolcraft Exemplar, and then literally anything.
So, you said a lot of stuff. I think we should unpack it. Number 1, just on that curve, Toolcraft Exemplar on 1, Heart of Kieran on 2. Instant synergy, right? So, Heart of Kieran is an artifact. Buffs Toolcraft Exemplar. Now, the important thing is on turn 3, if you look at this version, the Esper version, let's call it, there's a Thalia Heretic Cathar. That's a 3-power creature. Obviously, that can crew Heart of Kieran. And also, I mean, obviously, in that spot, especially on the play, Thalia is the best play you can make, right? It's pretty fantastic. Might even Winter Orb the opponent a little bit. But PNLR is ostensibly a 2/2 creature, right? So Heart of Kieran has crew 3, but because Pia comes with a Thopter, it gives you enough crew that you can rumble. And of course, there's Veteran Motorist, right? That guy's.
Yeah, and Scrapheap Scrounger too, which is a reliable. See, the nice thing about Scrapheap Scrounger with Heart of Kieran is that one of the biggest weaknesses for decks like this is typically sweepers, and Fumigate in particular is devastating to a Mardu deck normally. That's part of the reason why Jeskai could be so effective against them. However, with the re-edition of Scrapheap Scrounger and Heart of Kieran as a sort of 1-2 punch, even when your opponent sweeps the board, you can just, during your opponent's end step, get back your Scrounger, untap, and then just crew with Heart of Kieran. Even if you didn't have the mana, on your turn you can get back the Scrounger and then immediately tap it to crew the Heart of Kieran, so that, like, you're putting a lot of pressure on them, And the combination of Heart of Kieran and Scrapheap Scrounger means between those two and Thraben Inspector, plus little incidental stuff like PNOR's Thopter, or in the case of the Esper build, Aether Sphere Harvester, you get to make use of one of the absolute best cards, one of the most defining cards in the format, Unlicensed Disintegration, and Spire of Industry, which I still think, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, Spire of Industry to me is that's the single most. That is that is so dubious of a design to be in this spot in terms of how much fixing it's providing and how much it's enabling this Mardu aggro deck.
Oh, it's just
and
gorgeous.
Plenty of other decks for that matter. I mean, I played 4 Spire of Industries, so it does an awful lot of stuff.
Oh, it's just gorgeous. I mean, it taps for colorless. It comes into play untapped, right?
Right.
It has the superpower of not coming into play tapped. The taps are colorless, which is great for cards like Aether Sphere Harvester or Heart of Kieran. These are colorless cards. There's tons of colorless costs in this deck on cards like Gideon, even Unlicensed Disintegration has colorless.
Thalia, Scrapheap Scrounger, PNOR, all that.
Everybody's got that. And like you said, it's so easy to enable, just like the incidentals on Thraben Inspector, whatever, PNLR. And then it's just this insanely powerful card because it comes into play untapped.
Yeah.
So it's got like a giant red S on its chest.
Yeah.
So, but Lucas had some funky cards in his sideboard.
Well, so a lot of the funky stuff, I suppose, that you might be looking at, it's going to be similar to a number of the other themes that we're going to see among some of the other players. That basically all the players who, not all, but many of the players who played Mardu vehicles that were part of big teams came to similar conclusions regarding the need to get bigger after sideboarding. one of the big weaknesses, one of the big failings, not failings, I should say, weaknesses of the previous versions of Mardu vehicles had been the ability of players after sideboarding to get bigger than them. Fumigate sweeping the board, or black-green, black-green, I think I misspoke earlier, by the way. Historically, the Mardu deck has done very well against Jeskai, but black-green has a lot of removal for the Mardu deck's threats, and very efficient ones, as well as some pretty big, heavy-hitting threats themselves. And the ability to transform sort of into a deck that can actually, into a sort of red-white control deck, or I guess a Mardu control deck, it's better than it looks. Like it's actually like a very important part of the plan, the use of Chandra, Torture, Defiance, as well as, any other planeswalkers you might have, big vehicles like Sky Sovereign, Console Flagship. Cultivator's Caravan is actually something we're going to see a little bit of, both, stuff like more creature lands like Needle Spires and Cultivator's Caravan serving dual purpose of both being additional threats that dodge sweepers, while at the same time helping increase the mana count enough to actually, go up to 4 and 5 instead of just being about 2s and 3s.
I was thinking like an Inventor's Apprentice. That's a funky sideboard card.
Well, I mean, that one's a little... Yeah, I can't speak too much to the reasoning behind wanting just one additional, but I assume that it's a curve-related issue, and that there are matchups where he just wanted to have another one-cost threat, having another proactive card he could play cheaper. When I assume that there's a certain number of cards he wants to take in and out in those matchups. And that by having one extra Inventor's Apprentice, it's just rounding that out. But no, I can't. I don't know of a specific tactical reason.
Oh, sure. I think getting faster and increasing the consistency of having the initiative, maybe especially against other fast decks when you're on the draw, maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah, the part of it though might also be, living through stuff like Flying Tendrils is definitely a very real thing, as Flying Tendrils was one of the more successful sideboard cards for some of the niche decks because of its strength against the most dominant card in the format this week, Scrapheap Scrounger. Scrapheap Scrounger is it's a very potent Magic card. It is
outstanding Magic card.
It is surprising how good they made Scrapheap Scrounger. But I actually, for what it's worth, I would not be surprised if they... I think that they might not ban anything, but I do think this format could stand to have just slightly more tweaked to it, and I think that Scrapheap Scrounger would be my recommendation. I think you could just keep the format as is with one minor change. My recommendation would be to change Scrapheap Scrounger, but I also think they could keep it. I think that we already saw at the SCG Open the sheer volume of just the same 3 paper, rock, scissors decks, and Scrapheap Scrounger I think contributes a bit to that, particularly now that the black-green decks are all incorporating it as well. I think it just puts so much pressure on the ways that you can actually meaningfully interact with this style of deck.
I agree. I think, it's got so much Fleece Mainline to it, and it's also got, Eternal Dragon to it. It's, and these decks give it so much fuel by trading.
Yep.
Would you mind talking a little bit about Paulo, Vitor, Damo, de Rosa's version of Mardu vehicles?
No problem at all. And actually, I think that Paulo, it's important to note that, you can see a lot of the similar ancestry in some of these Mardu vehicle decks, because obviously both the Brazilian and Portuguese players this was their weekend. They just put absolutely phenomenal weekend all over the place, and not just in the top 8, but just all over. Excellent performances. But this it's funny because before the week before the Pro Tour, Paulo had even been talking about how he really thought his team, and it's not the exact same. I mean, he's not just teaming with the Portuguese and Brazilian players, but he was of the opinion that they were going to be the best prepared, and there's certainly a compelling argument to be made. But Paulo's list specifically, there's a couple twists.
First of all, I just like to recognize, what number is this for him? This is 11.
Paulo? This is 11, but even more. I shouldn't say more. It is 11, and that's ridiculous. It's not even funny. But also, this Pro Tour marks the first time Paulo has pulled ahead of Johnny Magic in lifetime top 8 percentage.
So I was going to say, John has 16, but he has 10 years on Paulo, right? Literal 10 years on Paulo for 5 more Pro Tours.
Well, they were actually neck and neck. A year ago, they were tied, and then John top 8'd another Pro Tour. And he's like, got to stay ahead of Paulo. And now Paulo is comfortably ahead by, until, I don't know, John needs a couple more.
John had 2 last year, right?
John's ridiculous.
Paulo's not bad either.
No. I think we were talking about this weekend, and I think most of the Hall of Famers I was asking agreed that if Paulo won the next 2 Pro Tours, you could start to make an argument for Paulo at number 2.
If Paulo won the next 2 Pro Tours, come on, Patrick.
Dude, the last time we said this, Kai won the next 2 Pro Tours.
Yeah, you know what? If Paulo wins the next 2 Pro Tours, sign me up for Paulo in I don't know, wherever you want to stick him.
Yeah, I think it's.
I don't think he's better than Kai.
I don't. It's really hard to even like the idea of John and Kai even getting into the zip code. The truth is that probably if Paulo won the next 2 Pro Tours, then people would say, okay, well, how about if he wins the next one? Right? Kai already had to do this. It's all big talk when everybody's like, well, win the next one. And then he does. It's like, so I don't know.
Got people eating hats.
How in the world are you supposed to compete with 7 wins? Come on.
You can't compete at some point, I was talking to Kibler about this years and years ago. We just declared Eric Lauer is the best or something like that, right? Just what am I supposed to do? That's what Kibler. I could do anything. I could just keep putting up good decks, etc. And people are just going to still talk about Eric Lauer. That was the conclusion. You just got to do the good work, Who cares what the narrative is? I think at the end of the day, this is unreal. Seriously, this is unreal. Paulo's performance. I don't know what to say. It's
classic Paulo's.
So what's weird? When it was Pro Tour Dark Ascension, there, the proposed headline was going to be John against Paulo for GOAT. That's what people were talking about. But then John didn't block the wolf, right? But then when they played last year in Milwaukee, no one even noticed. It was just oh, John beat Paulo. It was Paulo in his 10th top 8. Whatever, John beat Paulo. This is hats off. Eat the hat.
So, Paulo's variation has a couple things going on. First of all, he has Cultivator's Caravan instead of Aether Sphere Harvester in order to help contribute to the same sideboard type of stuff that we've been talking about, but to help support the actual blue stuff like Metallic Rebuke and Ceremonious Rejection.
This is a very different deck, despite sharing an archetype name.
Yeah, I mean, if you notice, Paulo still only has 1 Aether Hub, just not a reliable source of blue. Instead, he's getting his blue mana from 4 Spire of Industry, 2 main deck Spire Bluff Canal, 2 Cultivator's Caravan, and then in his sideboard, another Cultivator's Caravan and 2 Spire Bluff Canals. And the end result is access to 3 Metallic Rebuke and 2 Ceremonious Rejection. And then, of course, just wanting more mana for the purposes of Release the Gremlins and Chandra Torch of Defiance. This was really a great weekend for Release the Gremlins, by the way.
I have a hard time expressing how much more I like Paulo's deck than the other version. It seems to me so much. It seems to me focused and powerful, and more flexible at the same time.
One of the things I think that's just so smart about Paulo's list is the Paulo Pilot Exemplar.
That's one of the main things I would point out also.
Yeah, so DePaula was cut by a lot of people because of its being a little slow main deck. But Paulo is actually partly getting value out of the DePaula in how much it increases in strength after sideboarding. DePaula isn't the most insane thing in the world game one. I mean, it's decent. It is kind of nice to use DePaula to crew your Heart of Kirin to smash stuff for 5, right? Like, that's great. But part of DePaula's strength is that after sideboard, the games become a little more attrition-y, and you're grinding, and you've got a lot of mana, and you can use DePaula to start drawing some extra cards and really making some progress that way.
It's not super consistent in this deck, right? There are only a couple main deck, targets, and then.
Well, there's more than it. There's more. No, there's more than it would appear. I mean, there's 14, actually 15, I guess. Right? Like, there's 15 targets main deck besides himself, because there's 16 total, but presumably you always have one in play from using DePaula.
Sure.
But yeah, the fact that she can hit Toolcraft Exemplar, Veteran Motorist, the other DePaula, Heart of Kirin, or Cultivator's Caravan means you are drawing a card roughly every 4 mana. So like if you and you can break it up into whatever increments, like however much you can afford to pay. So like that is something, particularly when you're in a grindy matchup where people are sitting around. Whether they're sweeping the board or they're trying to play shocks against you, and you have DePaula, whatever it is. So I'm a big fan of Paulo's build, and I actually think one of the cards that he has in his sideboard is pretty underrated in the style of deck, and that's Fatal Push. A lot of people didn't use Fatal Push, but he got extra mileage out of the Cultivator's Caravans and used it to great effect with the Fatal Pushes. And the reason it's so important, so important to be playing Fatal Push instead of Shock in this spot, despite the fact that he's using 3 Shocks main deck, it's important that the Shock's definitely more main deckable card. Fatal Push here is crucial in his sideboard because of its application specifically against green-black decks. Like, when you want to hit Winding Constrictor, you really want that to be a Fatal Push, and sure. not just a shock.
So,
but there's more with Marcio. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Zach, I don't want to move off of Paulo's list quite yet. If we can linger on it.
No, go ahead.
One, obviously, he's super serious about blue, right? He's got 2 additional Spirebluff Canal in his sideboard. It's actually one of the things I love the most about this deck. I think it's really cool to do that in this kind of a deck. But the question I had about the blue is, Metallic Rebuke is a great addition, right? For all the same reasons we talked about in the previous in the previous Mardu vehicles. It's going to be there. It's going to be perfectly castable and cheaper than you expect a fair amount of the time. But what do you think about Ceremonious Rejection? At the previous Pro Tour, Ceremonious Rejection was obviously awesome, right? It's countering everything from devoid counter spells to, of course, Aetherworks Marvel. But Aetherworks Marvel is much less of a factor in the current standard. What is this there to fight? What is the enemy that Ceremonious Rejection is? Because every time somebody taps a Cultivator's Caravan when he's otherwise tapped out to nail Ceremonious Rejection to stop, anything from a Dynavolt Tower to a Aetherworks Marvel, it's a hero, right? Those cards aren't getting played. At least not at the top. What's Ceremonious Rejection's enemy? That's what I want to know.
Heart of Kirin.
So is this like I'm on the draw kind of thing? I guess I have like 2 additional blue lands that come into play untapped. I'm on the draw. I play Spirebuff Canal on turn 1, Heart of Kirin counter. That's my play.
Right, or alternatively, if you're on the play, you can go turn 1 Thraben Inspector. Turn 2, you have Spire of Industry, so that you can counter their Heart of Kirin. But you also want to counter Cultivator's Caravan, and you can use it on Scrapheap Scrounger if you have to, And it works. I mean, it'll hit their Aether Sphere Harvester if they have it. Whatever. It also has applications against a number of other decks. I mean, Marvel is a deck, and Metalwork Colossus is a deck, and they had they actually had respect for the various improvised strategies and just wanting to have some interaction there. But no, the single biggest thing is definitely Heart of Kirin. So Heart of Kirin is an extremely powerful card, and they found it to be quite warping in the matchup.
So here's my you could tell in Paulo's build, right? T'Pala and Heart of Kirin are just peanut butter and chocolate. Like that's unreal. That's punching through anything. But my follow-up question is, if that's the fight that Ceremonious Rejection wants, is Ceremonious Rejection a main deckable card in this format for someone? Maybe not for Mardu vehicles, but maybe a more controlling strategy. Is that? Yeah. It's just yes. That's the answer.
No, it could be. Yeah, so it's pretty bad against Copycat and all the various Copycats. It's unbearably bad, and it's hard to be getting enough value compared to Negate. The reason you would do it is because of Heart of Kirin, or else in general you mostly are just going to be playing Negate. So, I don't know. It would be hard for me to want to get to a place of doing that, because I think that there's still just going to be so many decks that, I mean, if you're playing like a control deck, you could do it. I think it's totally fine. I think that blue-black control can play Ceremonious Rejection main deck.
But sideboard all-star for sure in other strategies, not just in Mardu.
For sure. Sure. It's even better in decks to have Island, for instance.
Yeah. The only thing I'd point out before we move off of Paulo's build is, it was so funny. Lucas's build's got 3 copies of Inventor's Apprentice main deck, and he liked it so much he has the 4th one we talked about in the sideboard. 0 Inventor's Apprentices at all in Paulo's deck.
Yeah, I mean, Paulo's deck was definitely positioned to be the Mardu deck that's going a little bit bigger. Yeah, he traded his Inventor's Apprentices in for DePaula, wanting to position himself, just slightly bigger on the food chain.
Just more consistently crew Heart of Kirin, and like you said, it's very warping there.
Yep.
All right, so you wanted to jump over to Marcio. Marcio, nice follow-up. His last big tournament and so on.
Second in the World Championships, and now second in... and this is, he also had that top 8, that GP top 8. Actually, I think 2 GP top 8s. I don't recall if it was 1 or 2 late last year. But, another big finish by Marcio. And in this spot, he's playing a very similar, I guess, style of Mardu vehicles to his teammate Esper. The main, I guess, variations between him and his teammate Lucas were just minor number tweaks. Marcio only played 2 in, I guess, Marcio had like a fatal push in his sideboard and just little things like that. Like I actually didn't see too much difference. One thing he did have that's kind of spicy though is Archangel Avacyn.
Yeah.
Additionally, he had 2 Fumigates in his sideboard, which a number of the teams used, and I thought was pretty decent. Craig Wesco and Raph Levy, the style of Mardu they liked was also looking at Fumigate out of the sideboard as a weapon for fighting against black-green decks. Once you board in this extra mana, Marcio has Needle Spires here, and also have Chandras and so on for playing that sort of red-white, or the sort of mid-rangey game. I think the Fumigate adds kind of a nice dimension.
So I'm going to say something that might be controversial. Maybe not, though. are these really vehicle decks? Like, they're called like Mardu vehicles, but when we first saw vehicle decks, like, people meant it. Like, you played Fleet Wheel Cruiser instead of Gideon in some of those decks, and they were like 4 copies of T'Pala and et cetera, et cetera. You could see Sky Sovereigns in the main deck sometimes. These decks are just like, correct me if I'm wrong, this just looks like a pretty good stuff mid-range aggro deck with some great tempo. It just happens to have this 2-mana threat, Heart of Kiran.
Veteran Motorist is a vehicle call-out. Veteran Motorist is a vehicle call-out, and, obviously T'Pala in the other deck. How many vehicles do you really need? Mostly it's a Mardu artifact aggro deck, right? Like, it's a Mardu deck that has a light aggro theme. A light artifact theme. All these decks are really just unlicensed disintegration decks. That's what they're all, like, this deck. This deck's theme is that it's a deck that gets to use unlicensed disintegration and Toolcraft Exemplar. That's its theme.
So, yeah, they're just great cards, I think.
Yeah, Gideon is just a great card. This deck is full of just great cards. It's just that in this case, he's got a couple, they've got a couple cards that are great cards that ask something of you. And that thing is, can you have an artifact in play?
I'm just saying, I would contrast that with a vehicles deck wherein you're sacrificing some number of copies of Great Card Gideon, right? Maybe not all 4, or maybe these guys are playing 3 for the most part. Maybe sacrifice 2 copies or something in order to play Fleet Wheel Cruiser, and or playing 4 copies of Veteran Motorist and 4 copies of T'Pala. And that's not what we're seeing with these Mardu decks. That's all. That's on. I'm coming at it from, because I think that there's a difference, and I think that maybe if we see coevolution of different strategies, that those differences will become apparent in the same way that Black Green Energy and Black Green Constrictor and Black Green Delirium are different decks. That's kind of what I'm.
I think that the ability to play more vehicles was from before was partially a function of Smuggler's Copter. Smuggler's Copter stacks with more vehicles much better than Heart of Kiran does. To begin with, you can loot away extra vehicles so you don't have people to crew.
Fair enough.
Heart of Kiran is very demanding. If you have 2 Smuggler's Copters, or if you have like Smuggler's Copter and a cruiser, you can crew them more easily with whatever you have laying around. Heart of Kiran, first of all, you can't obviously stack Heart of Kirans anyway, but if you have Heart of Kiran and another vehicle, it's much harder to crew them because of the greater crew cost. I just think that the other part of it is the printing of Release the Gremlins, which is just a ubiquitous sideboard card this weekend. Release the Gremlins has made it a risky strategy to be setting your deck up in a way to intentionally put multiple artifacts in play. You'll notice all these Mardu decks, for the most part, Cultivator's Caravan makes for a little bit of an exception, but in general, these decks are all about getting one artifact in play, but they are not stacking them up. Because like Scrapheap Scrounger, it's whatever, it'll be back. And Heart of Kiran is legendary anyway. And the clues from Thraben Inspector you're going to sacrifice. These are very much one artifact so that my stuff is turned on Mardu decks.
I think that one of the things that's important to note is how passively excellent these Mardu decks are against copycat decks, right? So they just play Shock, right? Like, that's just a card they have in their deck. And I guess it's medium synergistic with whatever they're trying to do. But it's
good in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's good for getting tempo in the mirror.
Shock turns off the copycat combo if you're not careful. That's one. And the second thing is, you've said this before, it's not like Splinter Twin where you can pass your turn and then play half your combo at instant speed, right? And then on top and beat them. If you're just leaving Saheeli Rai out there, she's gonna get killed, right? Like, this deck's just got all kinds of ways to deploy a ton of damage at a Planeswalker who's sitting there undefended.
Yeah, if you just put a Heart of Kiran down on turn 2, they can't even play Saheeli Rai at all. Right?
Any number of these creatures is just going to slam it. Even, the there's all kinds of ways that you can do it, but she's dead.
Well, plus, when you have unlicensed disintegration going after the Felder Guardian as well, and then you also have access to Thalias in your main deck, as some of these players do.
Oh, yeah, that's completely turns the combo off by itself.
Right. I mean, Marcio's build would be just so punishing, for any sort of a copycat deck. The other Mardu vehicles decks, Yuchin Lu's build, amusingly enough, Aethersphere Harvesters and Cultivator's Caravan.
Only 3 Heart of Kirin main deck, though.
Yeah, that's not real.
Do you think he just didn't have the 4th one? What was the...
No, I think that it's very easy to not play 4 of a Legend. But from what I understand from an awful lot of players that I trust the perspective of who tested these Mardu decks quite a bit, to not play 4 Heart of Kirins in specifically Mardu vehicles is insanity. It's like one of the best cards. And, I think it's possible that, like, for instance, Martin Yuza could be forgiven for only playing 3 Heart of Kirins in his Jund Energy deck. Not even a vehicles, But, like, yeah, I think 4 Heart of Kirins is widely believed to be absolutely vital for Mardu vehicles at the moment. It's just so much more powerful than the other ones. It hits so hard.
Can we actually jump over to Juice's deck? Because this thing is like the circus. It's super fun. And it even has elephants.
Yeah, the only things I wanted to mention on the other 2 lists were that Yuchin Lu's sideboard did include the Metallic Rebukes, but he actually did go with Negate instead of Ceremonious Rejection. And then Eduardo's list actually 1 Implement of Combustion main deck, which I found interesting. And then in his sideboard,
artifact that can still turn off the copycat combo.
Yep. And then his sideboard actually 2 Spell Quellers and instead of the Negates or the Ceremonious Rejections, and then 2 Painful Truths.
I love this configuration, and I would not be surprised if we saw 3 or even 4 Spell Quellers coming out of the sideboard of these decks. Maybe there's some future version where Spell Queller creeps into the main deck. It's a pretty good card.
Yeah, and then finally, Donald Smith's list, his big twists were just the use of Bomac Courier instead of Inventor's Apprentice. And then in his sideboard, Gisela the Broken Blade coming back. I feel like that one's got to be right up your alley.
Absolutely. I'm all thinking about Gisela decks for. There's a Grand Prix coming up in New York next month, so I gotta gear up for that. But where do you think Gisela comes in? Because in the testing I've done so far, she pretty much dies. I don't know. Like, I try to play Gisela, and she eats an unlicensed disintegration. Like, that's where you want it, right? Like, Gisela's like a reasonably good stop sign for a Heart of Kirin, unless it's too big, which happens sometimes. But you just play it. It costs 4 mana, and sometimes you just take 3 additional damage instead of gaining 4 life. So I don't know. I feel like she's just not enough of a stop sign in the current format, and this is the kind of the mode aggro deck. This is where you want it the most, right? Like, she's outclassed on the ground by almost everything.
Let's put it this way. You don't want her against Jeskai, and you don't want her against Green Black.
No, Green Black, everybody's bigger.
And all of the removal kills her.
Yeah. So I don't really think she's that good here.
I don't think so either. I don't think. Yeah, it's surprising to me. Yeah, I don't think I would use Giselle anymore. Not here. Not like this.
I just think it's funny how Lou's just, he's got like extra scissors or something, right? Not only does he only have 3 copies of Heart of Kirin in his main deck, but if you look at the same kind of cards that are in his sideboard that PVDDR played, he just doesn't have like all the extra lands and stuff like that, like that Paulo used to enable his sideboard cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the discipline of Paulo's list. You know?
Like I said, it's of the many Mardu Vehicles decks...
Many.
Paulo's, in my opinion, is the best.
So what do you think of Martin Hughes' Mardu Vehicles deck, but with green instead of white?
I love this deck. I mean, I love it in part just because it's different, you know? When I was looking over the top 8 decks, I'm like, another Mardu Vehicles? Oh! Greenbelt Rampager. Here's something we can look at. I think it's super cool. 20 land base, but it has 4 copies of Attune with Aether. It's actually like... I guess it's not that risky, right? Like, you're likely to have untapped green on turn 1. Not guaranteed, though. I think he's probably got great tempo draws, right, with Voltaic. Like, first turn Attune with Aether into Long Tusk Cub or Voltaic Brawler. I think that's super solid. The only thing that I would criticize about this deck, and I don't even mean it to be a criticism, it's just a different direction you could go in, is if you're playing cards like Attune with Aether, I don't know why it doesn't have blue sideboard cards like the other Mardu Vehicles decks do. Honestly, I'm not even joking around on this. Like, this deck seems like it could be soft to copycat to me. It doesn't have the same level of force, I think, that... maybe I'm wrong. It has Fleetwheel Cruiser, which is a hasty muffin at attacking in. What do you think about that? I think this deck wants blue sideboard cards.
What do I think about Fleetwheel Cruiser being a hasty muffin?
Yeah, it's just, comes in, throws some damage. It's a Healy Rye. No, like...
I don't know. Yeah, I think this deck looks like it would probably be kind of soft to copycat. But I think that part of the gamble here was on how much he was planning on Mardu beating the copycat decks. And trying to position himself as being just, a little bit bigger, the vehicle deck that's a little bigger than the other vehicle decks. The thing that's kind of just wild about this as a black-green X deck, in terms of like Long Tusk Cub decks with Attune with the Aether.
Yep.
Talk about willing to kill your darlings. This is the green-black deck when you cut Winding Constrictor and Walking Ballista. Just, all right, what are the 2 best cards in the deck? All right, cut them both!
Well, in return, you get Unlicensed Disintegration.
Yeah.
Right, like that. That's a pretty big payback. I think you wanted to use
Scrapheap Scrounger anyway. And then Voltaic Brawler is no jokes.
No, I think this deck is nice, right? Like, so... You can go like Attune with Aether, with the Forest, go get a Mountain, second turn, Scrapheap Scrounger, third turn, Unlicensed Disintegration. That's like, you're doing it.
Well, and keep in mind, this is a deck it's really not a green-black deck splashing red. It's a green-red deck splashing black. And the Chandra Torch of Defiances are actually a very important part of the recipe. This deck is trying to play a legit, just... battle, like Chandra, we're seeing Chandra all over the place. She was absolutely just a superstar this whole weekend in so many spots. Her ability to blast another creature, like the fact that you can drop her and immediately flame tongue something, is already like excellent. But she also works very well for pressuring other people's walkers. And then when you're sitting around just trading cards with each other, it's so great to have access to a Chandra. And I think that this is an excellent spot for her. The thing that makes me kind of raise an eyebrow is the use of Greenbelt Rampager without Winding Constrictor. Like, you've already got 2/3 of Tron. You have Long Tusk Cub and Greenbelt Rampager. To be missing Winding Constrictor is like, that's surprising. Maybe.
Just for them. Maybe there's another deck there, though, Patrick, right? So we've seen a deck that claims to be the Black-Green Energy deck. Maybe there is actually a Black-Green Energy deck that incorporates Green Pellet Rampager and Long Tusk Cub.
Yeah, the green belt, the green black energy deck that some of the team top level guys were thinking about playing until they switched back to Mardu last minute involve green belt Rampager, Long Tusk Cub, and Winding Constrictor, because you get the 4x multiplier. With normally with Long Tusk Cub you have to spend 2 energy to get a +1/+1 counter. And the Rampager makes it so that for every GG you pay, you can get +1/+1 counter, which is, pretty cool. But once you have a Winding Constrictor, your multiplier goes through the roof. You actually, now it only takes a single G. Effectively, every GG becomes 4 +1/+1 counters because you're doubling the Rampager and you're doubling the Long Tusk Cub getting counters. So basically, every GG is actually GG for your opponent.
Can you stack it such that the green belt Rampager keeps bouncing up and down?
There's no stacking. Everybody thinks the green belt Rampager works different than it really does. It's just one ability. But yes, you can make it work because green belt Rampager only gives you energy if it doesn't get bounced. So by the time you're getting energy from green belt Rampager, you are already it's already getting bounced no matter how much you end up with. It's not 2 different abilities. So, like, if you have one green belt Rampager in play and you have a Winding Constrictor, you can't pay energy, so you get energy, and now you have energy, and then you just use 2 of the energy to put 2 +1/+1 counters on Long Tusk Cub, and then you can just repeat ad nauseum. And in fact, it still works no matter if you have how many Winding Constrictors. Like if you have 2 Winding Constrictors, you can actually, when you're at 3 energy, use 2 of the energy for Long Tusk Cub, and if you're at 2 energy, basically every time just use all the mana you have or all the energy you have until you have 1 or less on Long Tusk Cub. So no matter how much you get from your green belt Rampager, you're never going to be over.
So what's the payoff when you guys were playing like the Tron?
It's Long Tusk Cub.
Just Long Tusk Cub.
That's the main thing. I mean, you have Aether Hub and green belt Rampager itself, but no, that's it. That's it. In Martin's case, he's got the additional payoff of Voltaic Brawler, which is, that's something.
It's a good card.
Yeah, I mean, it's another 4 power. He's got these Heart of Kirans and the Voltaic Brawlers. So many beatdowns. See, part of the thing going on with Martin's deck is that he wants these people crewing the Heart of Kiran. Winding Constrictor doesn't crew the Heart of Kiran. And Voltaic Brawler does. Green Belt Rampager does.
Tremendous amount of discipline.
Well, and it's an important interaction. When you play Green Belt Rampager, you can crew the Heart of Kiran immediately in response to the trigger. I mean, that's part of what's going on with Martin's deck, is that he plays Heart of Kiran and has Green Belt Rampager so that even if he wants to spend his mana doing other things, he can crew the Heart of Kiran for 1 mana. And that's a pretty good deal.
That's super tricky. And he can just keep doing his other stuff, right?
Yep, and he can keep progressing his game plan in other ways. But it gives him some excellent tempo opportunities. He's got a variety of interesting tempo plays as well with Fleetwheel Cruiser. Fleetwheel Cruiser, we saw that initially, early last season, but it's got a couple new purposes. First of all, it ends up being relatively effective against Gideon in many ways, particularly when you have the ability to contribute any other damage to the board. And then it's exactly right to take down Saheeli Rai when somebody just plays Saheeli Rai because they're like, oh, black-green can never stop me, and you just Fleetwheel Cruiser them. And it's also just a fine card that dodges the sweepers. And when you don't have Gideons, you've got a little extra space there. But I thought it was
super
interesting.
cheap to crew. Also, that's the other thing.
Yep. I'm a little surprised to see 2 Fleet Wheel Cruiser and only 3 Heart of Kirin. I mean, I can imagine it could be right. It's more likely to be right here, given a smaller creature count than some of the Mardu decks. But I still think I would play 4 Heart of Kirins. I think Heart of Kirin is pretty crazy good. But man,
utterly reasonable.
What do you think about this whole Martin's deck? It's like so many of the best green-black cards, like Verdurous Gearhulk, put those in the sideboard.
Fatal Push, sideboard.
Rishka, Pima Renegade, 1 copy is enough. It's like, this is like the green-black deck you build when one of your teammates in Unified Constructed is already playing green-black.
Well, like you said, it's not a green-black red deck. It's a green-red deck.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the green-black deck is like Jan saying, oh, by the way, one last thing on Martin, though. I want to note, this is a big, big, big top 8 for Martin, putting him, this is going to thrust him immediately into the Hall of Fame discussions for this upcoming year, because he's always been, one of the absolute most accomplished Pro Tour players.
But all on Grand Prix.
Disproportionately on Grand Prix, and I think that this top 8 is going to go a long way towards helping put his name into the ring.
We shall see. I agree.
So what do you think of Jan's deck?
Wait just before we jump off of Martin's deck, 20 lands, 4 Attune with Aethers, and I love Tireless Tracker, Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
but it seems some of these is weird to me.
No,
like the 1 risk card is weird.
He's got 2 more. He's got 2+2 trackers is the way these decks do it.
Yeah, but he doesn't even have Evolving Wilds.
Nope, doesn't matter. Do you want him to be playing 3 trackers main, 1 in the sideboard? Because I think that's totally defensible.
I don't know. It's just like,
dude. Yeah, I think you have to understand how attrition-y the games of this format end up going, because of how many people are playing these decks that are all full of just like idiots and shocks.
Yeah.
And then you got idiots and shocks, and you just sit around playing idiots and shocks. And then whoever has Tireless Tracker just does crazy stuff. Plus really just, Tireless Tracker is just an excellent card.
And yet another card that just works great with Unlicensed Disintegration.
Yep.
All right, so let's jump over to Jan Cassandra's deck. Black-green delirium. It's got a lot of the stuff we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, right? So this is the delirium build. Only 2 Grim players, I think, is unusual. But he had
to make room for the Scrapheap Scrounger.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Also, 4 Verdurous Gearhulks, because he's serious.
So here's the thing that I find to be unusual, and maybe this is the direction that life is going to go for these black-green decks. I kind of get it, playing Scrapheap Scrounger, and you've got synergies with like Mind Rack Demon, for example, right? Got it. This deck doesn't have any Lilianas, right? 0. Right. I almost feel like there should be a resurgence of Grapple with the Past, right? Like, isn't Grapple with the Past the kind of card, or Vessel of Nascency, the kind of card that is going to make Scrapheap Scrounger that much better? And these were like heavy staple cards in previous builds of black-green, which is one format ago.
So I think that's a good idea. I think it doesn't end up working out because of the pressure on you. No, it's not even that. It would be fast enough. It's just that this deck has 4 Walking Ballistas, 4 Winding Constrictors, 2 Grim Flayers, 3 Scrapheap Scroungers, 4 Grasp of Darkness. You're talking about 17 2-drops already, and he's only got 2 Grim Flayers. The problem is that Green-Black has such an overwhelming embarrassment of riches. They're already set up in a way where their curve is based on playing 2 different 2-drops on turn 4. They just have so many 2-drops. And the end result is you can't afford to spend 2 mana on a card like Grapple with the Past because you don't have anything like Ishkana to catch back up. They're using Verdurous Gearhulk. They need to be on the offensive. They can't play stuff that costs 2 or more that doesn't impact the board. They also are they're just not getting enough utility out of the milling compared to Traverse. I mean, you see he's not even playing 4 Traverses. Traverse is more reliable as a mana fixer when you want mana. It's faster, it's cheaper, and then in terms of getting your creatures, I mean, this deck gets Delirium quite easily. The Traverse can just go get a Verdurous Gearhulk, whereas the Grapple with the Past, it's like, okay, well, you did mill a Scrounger, but you also, you got back a Winding Constrictor or something? It's not the same thing. Grapple with the Past before got a lot of value out of both Ishkan, Graph Widow, and then also, and this is a big one, setting up Emrakul and having the ability to get back Emrakul. And this is just a different world that we're in now, completely different world. I think Grapple with, because of 2 things, no Emrakul and having access to all these incredible new 2-drops. Like the fact that you have Walking Ballista and Winding Constrictor. That's on top of so many other 2-drops that you want to be playing.
What do you think about the 2 Evolving Wilds? I feel like this... I mean,
that's fine.
Like, I don't know. I love Evolving Wilds with Tireless Tracker. Maybe I need to kill some darlings there.
Yeah, I think you can play 2. I think you can play 4 also, though. I mean, I know Craig loved Evolving Wilds. Craig Wesco was one of his big pieces of tech for these decks was playing. He wanted to play 4 Evolving Wilds in his green-black deck when everybody else only plays 2. Because he just loved the combo with Tireless Tracker so much.
Yeah,
he also
really
liked it. He also liked it with Mind Direct Demon. You know, like you just have to. You really don't want to be paying the demon. You know, I mean, you really don't want to be.
Have you ever paid the demon? I have.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've paid the demon. Oh yeah.
I don't want to. No interest.
Big fan of this Lifecrafters Bestiary. When we're testing, we found Lifecrafters Bestiary to be pretty good. It's a little bit slow, but it's with how grindy these matchups are. I actually think you could play a second one, and I think the biggest reason why we are not seeing a second one here is the fact that he already has 4 Tireless Trackers after sideboarding, plus Ob Nixilis, plus a Nissa Vital Force, plus 3 Nissa Voice of Zendikars. There's so much grinding in this format. And Lifecrafters Bestiary is just absolutely fantastic, but you do get diminishing returns.
Well, because he's got 27 creatures, so it's going to be fully loaded.
I mean, it's a very powerful card. I also just think that this is a card that people are going to initially not fully appreciate how incredible it is because the format doesn't exactly line up right for it. I think that we're going to see Lifecrafters Bestiary really take off in about 6 months.
So,
not even.
At the previous Pro Tour, you played a kind of a big green-white deck, which was similar to some of the decks that came out at the Star City Open previous to that. Do you think that's an archetype that's gonna have any kind of legs given the current rock paper scissors? I feel like it has good cards and it lines up well in some ways.
No, I don't think. I actually think it doesn't line up well. Which part which is the part of it lining up well?
I feel like I like a lot of what it can do, but I guess green-black can do most of the same things. And green-black has Constrictor and green-white doesn't. And I guess that's the big division, right?
No, that's part of it. I mean, that's one. But so here's some of the issues. First of all, green-black is just substantially better set up against Heart of Kirin decks. Like, Stasis Snare is not how you want to fight a Heart of Kirin. Grasp of Darkness and Fatal Push are fantastic against Heart of Kirin. That right there is the single biggest one. And then beyond that, the green-white deck didn't really gain very much. And in fact, it lost not only Smuggler's Copter, but Selfless Spirit matches up very poorly main deck right now because of Walking Ballista. If you'll notice, basically none of these decks have 1 toughness creatures, right? Like they just cannot afford to play with things that are going to get beat, that are going to get punked by a Walking Ballista. But Archangel Avacyn is it might be the biggest loser. of the new set and the bannings and the shifts and everything. Archangel Avacyn still, I mean, it's just an amazing card. And as we saw, like for instance, Marcio actually has Archangel in his sideboard because it can just be super good against decks besides the big three. But Archangel Avacyn is not what you want against green black. It is not what you want against Jeskai, and it is not what you want against Mardu. And the end result is kind of a hostile format for Archangel Avacyn. And if you don't have Archangel Avacyn, then the green-white deck, it's like, well, why? Wait, like, what do you even have that is not the green-black deck? Like, you're down to basically just Gideon. And
yeah, it's weird. Even cards like Lamphold Pacifist that green-white could boast. I mean, green-black could play Lamphold Pacifist if they wanted to, right? They just choose not to.
Right. So, overall, I think it'll be interesting to see where this one goes. I personally hope they ban Scrapheap Scrounger, but we'll see. I don't know. I think that if I were going to play this upcoming weekend, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because it depends on if you're trying to like just break out of the metagame or if you just want to like optimize for the stuff here. I do think these Mardu decks will continue to be good, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity for brewing. And but then again, maybe I always do.
Same.
I definitely interested in improvised decks. You know, I played Blue Black Tezzeret Improvise at the Pro Tour, and I think that a little bit more time in the oven, and there could be something sweet there. It is definitely more of a deck that is set up to be good against Green Black and Copycat. So I'm not positive that Blue Black Tezzeret is the best in this Mardu heavy world. But it might also just be one step ahead, since I would imagine that there is a resurgence of green black this next week because in response to Mardu.
So green black is just fundamentally set up to be well performing against Mardu.
Yeah. The basic, and they're not blowouts, but the basic paper rock scissors is that Mardu has an advantage against Jeskai. And Jeskai has an advantage against green-black, and green-black has an advantage against Mardu.
Well, there you go.
But, of course, that's part of the reason why these Mardu decks have the sideboards they do. It's just that I think that green-black can evolve. You know, like green-black can be more accounting for the fact that these Mardu decks are going to go a little bigger, a little more mid-range, and just board accordingly. Like, for instance, I think that when the Mardu deck, or when the green-black deck goes a little bigger also, like in anticipation, it can actually work out pretty effectively.
Yeah, they have speed also, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're pretty fast and aggressive, and their cards are all just extremely efficient. I think the big thing is the green-black decks need to get away from Planeswalkers. I think that Liliana and Nissa are not that great against the Mardu decks in terms of the Planeswalkers that green black decks often have. But I think that a balanced mix of Grasp of Darknesses and Fatal Pushes, along with the usual aggressive threats, can be it's a winning baseline strategy against Mardu.
Sure, the more you play the Planeswalkers, even the cheap ones, the more likely you're going to get punked by Heart of Kirin, right? That's kind of the trade-off there.
The other big thing is you got to be able to be Chandra. Like, everybody's playing Chandra because of its strengths against green-black. And I think that your green-black deck, you have to find some technology against Chandra. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Martin, made good use of Fleetwheel Cruiser was for beating other people's Chandras. But when you have, if you're playing a green-black deck, if you just are holding a fistful of Fatal Pushes and Grasp of Darknesses, your opponent's Chandra will destroy you. And And if you just play out like, turn 2 Winding Constrictor, and they kill it with their own Fatal Push, or the Unlicensed Disintegration Hit, or whatever, and you drop a Rishka, Pima Renegade or whatever, and then Chandra comes down and domes it, you are in really bad shape.
Yeah, you're so far behind.
So far behind. You gotta have a plan against Chandra, because of just how burly she is against a green-black deck, and how well she matches up against their spot removal. And I'm not sure what the best one is, the best anti-Chandra plan for green-black. I feel like it's probably the sucker's way to try to be all Ruinous Pathing, but I don't know, man. You got to do something.
That's what I was thinking, but maybe that makes me a sucker.
No, I don't know. You got to do something. It might be that's the right way. I don't know.
Is a removal-based strategy a viable thing? Right,
what is?
You're
talking about in green-black?
No, what if you played, just for sake of argument, you played black-red, and you were playing cards like Ruinous Path, like you mentioned a second ago, and you top up into Goblin Dark Dwellers, right? Is that too slow? It seems like you've got some cards that have some play.
I don't know. I don't know that it's too slow. It's interesting. I think that I wonder where you're getting enough extra power. Goblin Dark Dwellers is it's okay. Chandra gets the better of Goblin Dark Dwellers sometimes, but I think that they can be friends, and I think that if I were going to play a Goblin Dark Dweller deck, I would be very interested in main decking Incendiary Flow. I think this is actually a really, really good time for Incendiary Flow. And it's funny, this is one of the first things Patrick Sullivan said about the format, a couple weeks before the Pro Tour. He said, I think Incendiary Flow is really good in this format. It's not a bad way to deal with some of these 2-drops. Obviously it's like the Bee's Knees versus Scrapheap Scrounger, where you get the you get the ability to actually exile the Scrounger. But the ability to go after some of these creatures at a reasonable cost, combined with the ability to go upstairs as necessary, and obviously Goblin Dark Dwellers flashing back the Incendiary Flow. But then I also love that if your deck is just stacked with Chandras, I love the Chandra and then Incendiary Flow in the same turn. That's a great 1-2 punch.
Oh sure, yeah. Again, like peanut butter and chocolate.
But if I were going to play red black, I think the big thing you'd have I'd be figuring out how to deal with is the efficiency of the threats that people are playing. When the green black deck just goes, I guess you could just have removal for days.
I think removal for days, some card advantage, and playing Tendrils in that deck might be great. Not only is it good against cards like Scrapheap Scrounger, but you flash it back and it doesn't kill your Dark Dweller. Mm-hmm. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, no, that sounds very interesting. I would be very interested in pursuing that. That there could be something there, I think you just got to make sure you have enough card advantage to actually be able to make it worth your while. But I love Chandra and Goblin Dark Dweller as a start. It's interesting.
Cool.
All right, man. I'm looking forward to seeing where things go from here.
Same. So thanks everybody for tuning in this week, and follow us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube or iTunes or wherever you listen to this, and support us on Patreon. I'm Michael J. Flores.
Patrick Chapin, and join us next week when we brew from scratch a blue deck. Dun dun dun! Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your Cora trapped in amber stasis. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind.